So 5.2 example 6 says that let sine of u equal -3/5 and cosine of v equal 12/13, with u being between pi and 3 pi over 2 and v is between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. Find the exact value of sine of u plus v. So we're after sine of u plus v. Oh, let me get my pen turned on here. Maybe. There it goes. And so we have a formula for that, don't we? So the formula tells us sine of u cosine of v plus cosine of u sine of v. So they gave us sine of u and cosine of v, and that's great. So I can plug in this first part. What do we know about sine of u? Times, what do we know about cosine of v? Plus, but I don't know anything about the rest of them yet, do I? So I'm going to come over here, and we're going to do a little work to find them. Let's talk about that angle u. What quadrant is it in?
U?
Yeah, it told me it's between pi and 3 pi over 2, so what quadrant is that?
2.
All right, and we know that, let's see, we know that sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to what? What's that identity tell us? Do you remember?
1.
It's equal to 1. So if I know sine, can I find cosine? Yeah, so what is sine? Yeah, in the problem, what is sine of, it says u, I'd put an x, but it's the same thing. So -3/5 squared plus cosine squared, I'll change it to u there, equals 1. So I'm going to square this. Subtract the 9 over 25. So when we subtract this, we get 16 over 25. And we take the square root. So cosine of u is positive or negative 4/5. But because we're in quadrant 2, what do we know about cosine? Cosine is negative. So I do know that cosine of u now is a negative 4/5, don't we? And excuse me. And so now we're going to do the same thing with v. Okay, so for v, we know that v, it says, is between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So what quadrant are we in?
It's going to be either 3 and 4.
4. 3 pi over 2 is at the bottom. 2 pi is on the right. So it's in between them, so it has to be quadrant 4. All right, so just like before, we know that sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x is equal to 1. This time they gave me the cosine of v, so I'm looking for sine of v. So I'm going to have sine squared of v plus, we know cosine of v was 12 over 13 squared equals 1. And so let's get sine by itself. And then take the square root. So we found that sine of e is equal to positive or negative 5 over 13. But we're in quadrant 4, so which one are we going to use? What is our sine of e going to equal? It's going to be negative. Good. So I know that sine of e then is negative 5 over 13. And now all we have to do is simplify this. All right, so I'm going to multiply. So what's that? Negative 36 over 65 plus multiply. It's 20 over 65. And then add them together. What do we get?
-16.
Very good.